What's up, guys? Thank you for joining me today. My name is Dr. Tom LaHue, and welcome to my channel on the Enneagram. And I'm so glad that each of you decided to check this video out. We're going to talk about type 5s, and we're going to look at this book by Beatrice Chestnut, The Enneagram Guide to Waking Up. We're just going to take a little paragraph out of there, read it, and then just unpack the thoughts, what bounces around in my head when I read something like this. And we're talking about 5s and their fear of abundance. What's that about? Fear of abundance. Remember, I'm a type 7, so more is always better. I know it's not always, but it sure feels like it. And then there's 5s down there that I'm connected to, the minimalists of the world, perhaps, that maybe dislike too much or too loud or too exciting or too much conversation. Maybe you're already tempted to turn off this video because you just don't want that noise in the background. Before we get started, just a reminder that on my website, in the description below is a link to my website, tomlahue.com, where you can book Enneagram coaching appointments. I have coached a lot of 5s, and so I have a son that's a 5, my dad was a 5, and I kind of understand this 5 mindset. Never fully. I understand that I'm not a 5, okay? So I'm sure I won't get everything right, and I appreciate you guys checking on me. But link to my website where we can do relationship coaching or Enneagram coaching. Also, I have some certificate classes that I offer if you're interested in studying more to apply the Enneagram in personal coaching or counseling or pastoral work, whatever it is, where you help other people. I'd love for you to sign up for one of those classes. And you can invite me to come to your live event. If you want me to coach your team, your staff, whether that's live in person or whether it's through Zoom, I'm now available to interact with your team and help them become more productive and more compassionate with each other. So let's take a second. Let's unpack what she talks about here with 5s and their fear of abundance. And when I read this, I was thinking about my son. I'm thinking about my dad, and some funny things came to mind. But she says, you may notice that you automatically react against what you feel is too much. Are there people that you sometimes are around that you just think, oh my goodness, they are too much. They're too loud. They're too angry. They're too opinionated. They're too dramatic. They're too superficial. I mean, just think of all of the kind of labels or tags we could put on this of people being too much. They're too self-focused. They're too extravagant in their taste. I wonder how far we could go. But just notice if you tend to react that people are too much, like being around them is too much. Too much of an exhaustion of your own resources. When you feel overwhelmed, people, you look around, you think, I got to get away from these people. I've got to withdraw from these people. You may tend to withdraw from people who talk too much. And here I am doing it right now. You may feel like I need to withdraw because especially if somebody, you don't feel like they really know the content well of what they're talking about. I sometimes imagine that maybe the worst feeling for a 5 is to be in a class with a professor who just doesn't really know the material. And as a 5, you just feel like you're wasting your time sitting and learning from someone who is incompetent. And I imagine that to be a very frustrating experience for you, as it is for all of us, but, you know, even more so for type 5s. So notice if you get irritated with, do you get irritated with little children? That's a good question, fair question. Do you get irritated with kids being loud, being rowdy, being rambunctious, running through the hallways, making noise, bouncing a ball, radios playing too loud? Does all of that stuff like weigh on your nerves? Do you get irritated with that? Do you visibly show your irritation by either facial expressions or statements that you say, or by withdrawing from those people? Do kids and the noise that kids make, do pets and the noise that pets make, do these things bring irritation to you? Do they feel like they are too much exhausting to your resources? Too many requests. People are making too many requests. They're asking too many questions. They're imposing their views, and they are being too loud for you. When they want to be too close for too long. Can you handle people like laying over on you or holding your hand or putting their arm around you or trying to connect with you? Does that become, you know, exhausting to you? Do you like physical touch? If you are a sexual 5, you know, the self-preservation, the social, and the sexual. If you're a sexual 5, are you okay with physical touch? What about you other 5s? Does physical touch become too much for you? Like if somebody just kind of leans over on you or puts their head on your shoulder, does that feel pleasant? Does that feel like a good thing, or does that feel intrusive to you? Interesting. You may be put off when there is too much of a good thing and react negatively. You know, I wonder, like at a concert, for example, if you were at a concert, halfway through the show, do you think, I knew I should have stayed home? I knew this would be too much. I knew the music's too loud, and now here I am stuck. I can't get away from this. Or to be at like a seminar where you were excited about the information, you were excited about the topic, and you're sitting there and you were paying attention, but now after 3 hours of this and all these people and all of this, you know, crowd around you and the volume, and does it feel like it's too much and I need to withdraw? I need to get away from this? Is that a common experience for you? So you may experience too much fun as a bad thing. And react negatively when there's too much, you know, sarcasm or too much, actually 5s are pretty good at sarcasm, and I think you know you are. Too much enjoyment, too much love, too much fun. I'm starting to see a little bit of Ebenezer Scrooge here. It's sounding a little bit like Ebenezer Scrooge. Like, turn off that music. Turn off that, you know, it's kind of that curmudgeon-y kind of feeling about it here. Interesting. And no disrespect, it's just what comes to my mind, okay? Observe yourself to see if this comes from a fear of abundance. What does that even mean, a fear of abundance? Can you explain that? Does that make sense to you when you hear that, a fear of abundance? Like, I'm going to have too much of something? Like, I love electric guitars, and as a 7, I'm kind of always focused on the one I don't have. I've got plenty of them, and you can only play one at a time, and I love them, but I'm always kind of like looking at that next one, like, oh, you know, that next one there, that would really be a good addition to my collection. But if you were to walk into a room, and let's say there's 10 guitars on the wall, does that make you feel something negative? Are you naturally inclined to reduce down to the 2 or 3 that you really like? Or are you okay with a wall filled with too much? How does too much feel to you? Because it seems like in my mind, like when I watch the show Hoarders, I'm no expert, but sometimes when I watch that show, some of the people on that show seem like 5s. I think there's other people on there too. There's 7s, there's 8s, there's other people on there, 9s for sure. But I look at that and I think, why is it that sometimes the hoarders are 5s and also all of the minimalists are 5s? There's something going on here in the way you guys relate to stuff, the way you think about stuff. Like it's better to have less. Seriously, flip off my channel. Don't flip it off. But go off of my channel onto, type in minimalism on YouTube and start watching some videos on minimalists and see if you don't think that some of these people that are promoting minimalism are 5s, okay? What is that about? What is it on this line of too much stuff or too little stuff that is important to you guys as 5s? Let's just take that word stuff. How do you feel about stuff? How do you feel about things? How do you feel about possessions? Does it bring up anxiety to you? Do you want for things? Are you the kind of person that wants for stuff? Or are you the kind of person that wants to eliminate stuff? How much of your attention is focused on the keeping of stuff or the sorting of stuff or the removing of stuff? Or do you never even think about stuff? Are you completely content? I think of 9s as being often very content. Would you describe yourself as being content? Or would you describe yourself as somebody that is discontent? Interesting. Okay, so what else does she say? She says, a fear of abundance that leads you to hide from potentially fulfilling experiences. So maybe something would actually be good for you, but because like I don't want to be around that noise, or I'm sensitive to all of that energy, all of that amusement or that enthusiasm, like it just feels too much to be around extroverts for too long. That maybe it would cause you to withdraw or isolate yourself from potentially great encounters or engagements or relationships. Interesting. Okay. By taking a refuge in a life script that makes you believe that you don't need very much. And I think that's pretty typical of fives. Like when people ask me to describe fives, I tend to say things like, I want to be unaffected by other people and their stuff. I want to not have to have a lot of needs. I don't want to necessarily need a lot of things or need other people, and I don't want other people to need me too much. Does that resonate with you? Am I out in left field? Maybe I'm out in left field, but that's kind of one of the things I think to describe fives is their relationship to needs is very different than a seven's. You know, a seven right there above you with that line to seven needs more stuff. And here's a five, don't want to need things, because I think needing things might open you up to not think of yourself as a very independent person. Then you need other people in your life, and does that make you feel something? Does that make you feel nervous or anxious in some way to recognize that need? Because maybe it's a good thing to need other people. Maybe it's a good thing that could open you up to deeper relationships and to more enriching experiences in life. Okay, just about done here. Let's finish this up real quick. So, a life script that makes you believe that you don't need very much, or that it's better to live simple, minimalistic existence. And I think minimalism is good. I have really tried to get on the minimalism bandwagon. And I haven't done it very good, but I know I always feel better when I go through some of my collections of stuff and I realize like, okay, I've got way too much of this, and which ones could I live without? Which ones could I let go of? And when I let go of the 2 or 3 and I give them away or, get rid of them, I do feel better. I do feel like there's a certain level of anxiety that comes by having too much stuff. Imagine if you had 100 different neckties and you go to put on a necktie and you got to look at all 100 of them and try to decide which one is the right one to wear. There's a certain level of anxiety that comes from having 100 neckties to choose from. And life would be much simpler if you only had 3. If you had 3 and this one goes with brown and this one goes with blue and this one goes with black, then it's kind of fairly, self-explanatory which tie I'm going to wear today. And I do think that you 5s could teach us 7s a lot about sorting through our things and finding joy in less. Because too much of something, I get it, it can become problematic. And that isn't necessarily the best way to experience life. Jumping from one to the next, to the next, to the next, trying to become a connoisseur and find out what's the best. Life could be a little simpler by just having less things to choose from. Is this important to you? How important is it? And does this tendency you have to choose less sometimes keep you from experiencing more in life? Interesting. You're kind of on the other side of the coin from us 7s, and I can tell you that as a 7, that whole experience of stuff can become problematic. And I just wonder, on the flip side of that coin, on your side of the coin, how would you describe the ways in which your relationship to stuff and things and noise and people and chaos and laughter and money and all those other things? I'd be interested your perspective of how it can become problematic for you. Okay, as always, thanks guys. Take care. I wish you the best. And as always, be present to life. I'll see you next time.